Hey, what's good, creators? Welcome back to Monzon Media. Today we're going to look at the portrait editor within Luminar AI. I know this video was supposed to be last week's video, and last week's video was supposed to be this week's video, but who cares? Okay, so I already have my image set up. I did all my adjustments to it. And if you go into your tools here on the right side, if you scroll down to the portrait section here, you're going to see four areas that you could work in. You have face AI, skin AI, body AI, and high key. So let's take a look at face AI. If I were to use this feature, I tend to be in here the most. And the first one we're going to look at is the face light. And basically what that does, it brightens up the face. Like if you have a situation where maybe you're in the shade and your exposure is off a bit, you can brighten up just the face here. As you see, when I increase the slider, how bright it gets there. I might use this every now and then. Like I might use this just a little bit here. Now, should you want to slim the face slightly, you can do that here. As you see, we're bringing the slider up and it's making her face a lot thinner. Now, this is very excessive. I barely use this. If anything, I might use it a little bit. The most I might go is 10. So if I were to do a before and after, you could barely notice that. See that? Next, we're going to look at the options for the eyes here. And this very first menu here, you see you can change the color of the eyes. So if I were to change it to blue, you're going to see, let me zoom in here. And if you bring the iris visibility up, the more intense that color is. It's almost demonic. And I guess for April here, I would maybe use brown, but again, it's a little too intense for me, even if it's all the way down. Like if I back this off, that's a little too much for me. I wish you could bring this down just a little bit, but it's nice to have that option. The second option you have here is the iris flare. In this case, I wouldn't use it just because there's so much reflection and catch light coming out of her eyes already. There really is no need to use it, but if I were, you're gonna notice, especially around the bottom areas here. Let me zoom in just on the eyes. If I bring this all the way up, you see how it kind of artificially gives you, that catch light. That's a little too much. Right, I would just put it just a little bit if I wanted to, but like I said, in this case, I don't need to use the iris flare. There's so much reflection in her eyes. Enlarge the eyes, again, I wouldn't use. Maybe if you're doing, a meme or a crazy thumbnail, you could use this. But again, in this case, I'm not going to use this option. We have eye whitening. Obviously, it's to whiten the eyes. I don't know, some people like to use this. I may use it just a little bit. The eye enhancer is something I use quite a bit if I need more sharpness, more detail in the eye. You see, if I bring it to about halfway, what a difference it makes. So let me slide that back down, it just gives it a little bit of sharpness. It makes the eyes pop just a bit more. With red eye removal, it's not needed for this particular picture, but I've tried it with other pictures I've had with red eye, and it works fairly well. Dark circles removal, I don't really see the benefit of this. If you, let me again zoom in here. Like usually where there's dark circles around the eyes, that's what it's supposed to remove. And if you look at it, it's really kind of just bringing, like if you look at this area here where usually the dark circles are more prominent, it removes it a little bit, but very subtly. And again, it doesn't really do much for me. It's such a slight change that it's almost unnecessary. With improved eyebrows, it just makes it more prominent, gives it a little boldness, a little darker there if you wanted to do that. So I'll leave this at about 10 just to, slightly touch it up. So if we look at the before and after, again, very subtle changes, okay? Now onto the mouth. The first option we have here is lip saturation, and that really just saturates the lips. Even more so, as you see when I bring it up, it makes her lips really red. I guess I can put that up a little bit if I wanted to. And then you can further increase the redness here. Now it looks like we've applied more lipstick to her mouth there. It's a little too much, so I'll bring that down. The darkening of the lips, again, you could play around with this, see what you like there. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. And then the teeth whitening, if I bring that all the way up, you see magically the teeth become super white. I may do it halfway. If I feel like it needs a bit more brightness, I would use the dodge and burn tool here as well. Now let's have a look at Skin AI. If we look at the first option here, and it's really just to smoothen out that skin. So if I bring it all the way up to 100, you see how it smoothens out the face, and it does a really good job of keeping the skin's texture, which I quite like. Now it's a little excessive, so typically at the most I may go up to about 50 here, just so it still looks natural. Now the next one, shine removal. This has a lot to do with, hot spots and slightly overexposed areas on the face. There really isn't any on this picture. The last option here, skin defects removal. There really isn't much for it to do, but basically it would, remove pimples or any blemishes on the face, and it does a decent job. Again, I would rather use the clone tool. Actually, you know what? I'm going to show you how this looks. So if we look at this picture, you see there's a little blemish here and her mole there. Let's click on this, and you see how it removes the mole here and the blemish. But as you can see, it looks kind of obvious. Like if you're not really looking for it, you wouldn't see it. But because I pointed it out, you could see the difference, right? And even the mole, like if you really look at it, it's not that noticeable. But I think if you were to do something like this, the clone tool is a better tool to use for this type of thing. Now in terms of body AI, you only have two options, shape and abdomen. And if we look at the shape, basically if you bring it to the right, it's going to make the waistline a bit thinner. I'm going to bring this all the way up, and then if you bring it to the left, it widens the body shape. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. And the abdomen, it kind of does the same thing, but it brings the stomach inwards. Next is the high key option. This gives it that harsh lighting, strong lighting kind of look, almost washed out. As you see here, I've brought it up to 50, and it's whitened the image, giving it kind of that brighter look. If I bring it all the way up, you see how excessive that is. I'll bring it down. If I bring it to about halfway, that's a bit too much. I'd bring it about to 20 if I was going to use this. And then you would just have to play around with the sliders in terms of how intense you want it to be. And with this, you really just have to play around with what looks good. I'll bring the blacks down here. I quite like the glow here. Like if I wanted to use it, it kind of gives it a softer look with a little bit of glow. Again, you can bring the contrast up or down, and you can fiddle with the saturation. So within the portrait editor, I'm mostly using face AI. The eyes I will enhance and I will touch up the skin. So that's pretty much it with the portrait editor. My honest opinion is it's super easy to use for, the casual shooter, the average Joe, like most of us. I think it works very well, and Luminar does a great job of making it super simple. You're just sliding your way up and down and finding what looks good to you. So yeah, that's a portrait editor in Luminar AI. So I'll see ya when I see ya.